Good morning. It's Yvonne from the Fabric Hut. Hey, come and join me today as we work on this project, um, getting ready for the 4th of July here in our area. And I just thought it would be fun to do a pot holder to take your baked beans to the barbecue with. It is a two-handed pot holder, so you can just wrap around your hot pot and take it with you. Going to be a lot of fun. So come join me in my sewing room as we make this pot holder. Alrighty, well, we are going to start with our red and white strips. So I have 3 red strips that are roughly 27 inches. Well, they are 27 inches. However, if you had big pots and you wanted something a little longer, you could go as much as 34 inches or so. I did 27 because that's just a really good sign for me. And then you are going to sew your red strips and your white strips together with the red on top, the white on the bottom. And you're going to do that for a reason that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. I am going to just quickly sew down them. I'm using my middle finger as a guide to keep this strip from going anywhere else, and my thumb as an anchor. And that just gives me the ability to sew really quickly right down the side. When I get to a spot where I'm not seeing it aligned, see how it's coming up not aligned here? I'm going to just stop, realign things, get them all nice and lined up, and keep going right there. And there we go. Okay, so I have sewn white to red with the red on top. I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys, and now we have been sewing this direction, right? So we have right here and right here. When you sew long strips together, all in the same direction, what happens is you eventually are going to get a curve in your fabric. So instead of sewing this direction, I'm going to go from the other end. And remember, I had red on top. I'm going to do red on. If I turned it from this way, let me back up. If I open them up and put them right here, I would have a white on top, right? That's going to be sewing from the same direction. So I'm going to go to the other end, open it out. Okay, here's the other end. I'm going to open it out. Come on, fingers, you can do this. And flip it over. So I'm sewing from this side with the red on top. And that's going to keep it from getting that little spin that sometimes you get when you are doing a lot of long strips. Now, this is only going to be 5 long strips, but why risk it, right? So get it all lined back up there and continue going. So these are 2-inch strips. So when I get all 5 of these together, it's going to measure about 8.5 inches. And that's what we want. Okay, so I sewed 2 strips from the other end. So I'm going to sew 2 strips now from this end. I'm going to stop. And again, keeping the red on top, I'm just going to open it out. And I'm going to add that 3rd red strip right here on top. And that gives me 2 strips going from each side, which will straighten out any curve that may have tried to form in this long strip sewing. There we go. Now when I press this, I am going to be pressing towards the red because I don't want any shadowing of white or of the red behind the white. So if I press towards the red, we won't have that problem at all. Alrighty, there we go. We got it. So I'm going to take this to my pressing mat and I'm going to press open towards the red, just like that. This one towards the red. Everything's going to go towards the red. Bring this up. Okay, so I finger pressed it open there. So I should be able to just take my iron and go up. I'm still double checking with my left hand that things are where I want them to be. And pressing it open. Yep, I got a twist. Got a twist. This would be easier up on my big pressing board, but that's okay. We're going to just go really quickly here. And then I'll do the same on this one. I'll press towards the reds. Okay, so I'll do that. Then we'll go on from there. Now we're going to work on the stars. Okay, so the stars, you can use whatever star block you have that you like. I have picked this one because I like to be able to do flying geese 4 at a time. So these are our center squares. We're going to set those aside. You need 2 stars. I'm going to set those aside for a moment. And we are going to make flying geese 4 at a time with these 2 large squares. This one is 4 1/4 inch squares with 2 3/4 inch sky units. Okay, so remember how to do these. We're going to draw a line on the back of our sky units. We need 2 large squares and 8 small ones. And we'll draw lines on the back of our small ones so that we can just putz right along. Okay. I just thought we needed something patriotic for this upcoming holiday. And this doesn't take that long to make. You could probably get it done in less than an hour. So let's just see what we can do here. Okay. Well, we'll start with these 4 and then I'll do some more. Okay. Remember to put them right sides together with this one on the bottom and this one on the top, like that, so that it's a continuous line without catching that up with your sewing machine. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side. There we go. And because we're doing 2, we can, start at the bottom. Yeah, we can just chain piece them. Now, if you were making these as gifts, you could make a few at a time and just go all the way down and have this happen really quickly. This is a fun little hostess gift if you're going to somebody's barbecue for the 4th. You could certainly take one of these along, carry in your contribution with it, and then leave it behind. Okay, so we did that side. Where are my snippers? Right here. Love my little snippers. And go to the other side. Oops, right there. Now I know we've talked about flying geese this way before, but there are probably some new people that haven't been following along, and so we want to just touch base with it again lightly. If you haven't followed along and this is the first time you've seen this technique, look in the list of videos and find the one that's called Making Flying Geese 4 at a Time, and it'll be a little bit more detailed. Okay. Cut and cut this apart. And we will just cut right up the center. Like that. You can use your rotary cutter if you want. These are smaller blocks, so I'm just going to give it a quick like that. There we go. This flying geese is the hardest part of this block, and it's not even hard. Okay, so what I'm making is a 6-inch star. On my sample, I made an 8-inch star, and I just didn't like the way that it turned out. Once I get this one done, I'll show you the two side by side and show you what I mean. I wanted just a little bit to have the star a little more centered. So what I did is I'm making this one a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to put a border on it so that it looks a little bit different. Okay, let me move my camera out just a smidge here. Come on. Oh, wrong way. I wish I could remember which way there we go. It seems like I always push it the wrong way, don't I? Okay. Okay, and last one. Okay, so now we have our 4 of them, like this, right? We need 8, so each one of these is going to make 4. Okay, bring out our squares again, and draw on the back of these 4 really quickly. There we go. 2, excuse me, 3, and 4. Okay, and once I'm done with this process, we will have all 8 of our flying geese, and we'll be ready to assemble our block. Okay, put it down so that it is coming to the point from between the 2 sky units to the point. Okay, this won't do it for you. That's going to give you that. We don't want that. There we go. Line it up. 3 and 4. So if you're sewing along with me, you can pause the video and do this, and then come back and we'll go on to the next step. I love that you have that ability to pause me. I have friends who wish they had the ability to pause me, but yeah, just don't worry about keeping up. Just do your thing. Turn the video, pause the video, and come back, and we will keep going. I'll wait for you, I promise. Okay, so I have these 4 done on one side. Come on. And I'm going to take the first 3 off and bring them to the front. And then I'll pull that last one in just a minute. I'm letting it be my anchor. Okay, and go the other direction. There we go. So we're aiming for this point right here. That's what we want, is for that point to be right at the edge of our seam. That's what's going to give us a nice even top on our flying geese. So if you can, hit that point. And that one's pretty good. So that's where we're aiming at on both sides. One more. We're going to pull this last one that we haven't done yet and do it too. Excuse me. It is allergy season in Oregon. Okay. There we go. We have all 8 of our flying geese done. Just doesn't look like it yet. Okay, here we go. We need to just trim between them and press them out. And when you press them out, you're going to want to take the time to cut all your little dog ears off so that your next step is a little easier. It doesn't hurt to have them. It just makes it a cleaner finish if you do. And I find it easier to fit through my foot with the guide if I don't have dog ears. So, okay, here we go. And again, we're pressing towards the sky unit. On flying geese, you always press towards the sky unit. Get there. And we are going with the straighted grain. We're not going with the diagonal. So I like to put them with the goose unit here and just go sideways with it because that gives me that straighted grain. And turn this one upside down so I can do it the same way. Straighted grain. I say that a lot, don't I? Straighted grain. Because it really does make a big difference. Okay. I'm going to pull a couple of these and show you what I mean by hitting that point. Because I saw one. Oh, here's another one. Set this one aside. We'll talk about it in a second. About when you hit the point and when you don't. Okay. So let's cut these off. These first two here because they are going to be a really good example of hitting the point or not. Okay. Whoop. If that pressed the wrong direction there. Get my iron up here and catch up real quick. Okay, so this one, I hit that point perfectly where the two seams came together, and see how it is straight across the top. I've done nothing to it. It is just automatically nice and straight across the top, and this blue point is 1/4 of an inch down because I hit that intersection perfectly. This one, on the other hand, I did not hit it perfectly. Look what happened. This one is shorter because I did not hit that intersection perfectly. I was a little bit off. So do I still have 1/4 of an inch down? Yes, I do. I don't have 1/4 of an inch all the way across, but I do have over 1/8 of an inch. So it will still work for me. It's just not as precise. Oh, let me get it up here. See that? It will still work, but it's not the perfection that I always hope for. So let's see how I did. Okay, so I know I have one that's off a little bit. That one's good. So this is what you're aiming for, is that perfection right across the top. And if you get your needle right on that intersection of those blocks, it's going to work perfectly. So, well, there's another one that I'm off just a little bit. It's probably the pair to this other one that I was off, because typically if you're off on one side, you're off on both, but not always. There we go. And just get them all trimmed up. And we are, oh, well, I did pretty good. It looks like I got 6 of 8. Yep. So the other two will work. They're just not quite as accurate, but they are going to definitely work. If you wanted to, you could certainly take them apart and readjust them, but it's going to work. So I'm going to leave it be. Get rid of these little dog ears. Okay, time to build our star. So we are going to take our center squares, and our star is going out from that center square. So we want the yellow to the yellow. There we go. Now, if you wanted your stars to be white, you certainly could do a white square. I mean, if you wanted your squares to be purple, that would work too, I guess. It's not very patriotic, but hey, it's your quilt. I have a wall hanging in my quilt room that says, "My quilt, my rules." So your quilt, your rules. Okay, so there's my 2 stars. Then I'm going to throw in my blue corners. Okay, just like that. So I'm going to get those all sewn together. I'm going to web them by starting on the center. I'm going to pull that side off to the edge. I'm going to just flip these over and get it lined up right and just sew right down that edge. Flip this one over, align it. Now, typically I would want to sew from this side so I could see that point, but I can see it right here. No, so because this one is the same all the way around, if you wanted to flip it, it would not make a difference in your pattern, and you could flip it. And so you want to get right one stitch to the right of this cross point there. So I'll just turn it over so you can see that. Okay. It just means we're going to have to adjust when we sew them together again. Okay. And that one. Okay, and do the same thing over here. And I'm just chaining them all together here. This one I'm going to leave this side up and just look through my yellow fabric. Now this is the one that didn't line up quite right, but it's going to work just perfectly anyway. I'm going to keep my 1/4 of an inch even with the yellow square, going right through that point. There we go. And the last one is right here. Okay, now I'm going to undo the first 3 because this is the one that we have changed things up a little bit. So right here, we can still sew this one here, right? But this one's on the wrong side. So I'm going to clip it apart like that and just flip that one around so we can get this goose unit to the right place. Now I'm going to flip this one open. There we go. We are set to go. Just like that. Okay. And off we go one more time. Get them nice and aligned. And hit just to the right of that cross right there. Perfect. And the last one. Okay, so I'm going to finish doing my next block, and then I will sew them together in strips and finish off these blocks. Okay, so we have them sewn. Now we have to decide which way we want to press them. So because these 2 are solid pieces with no seams in them, I'm going to want to press towards them. And thankfully, that's the darker color. So we're just going to press towards the darker color right there. Now this center one, these points make it to where it automatically wants to press towards the center. Since we press that one out, we'll press this one in. And now that's going to help these seams nest. So again, we're going to press this one out like that. And now when we sew them together, those seams are just going to nest perfectly right there, and we're going to get a nice sharp star point. Okay, so let's do the other one, and then we'll sew them together. So middle goes in, middle goes in, edges go out. There we go. Okay, and now I can just chain sew them again and get this down all to one side, one block piece. Okay, here we go. Get those nested perfectly. They're still hooked together, so that little string right there is going to help you get them nested. Right there. Feel it nested right here. I'm going to get that nested before I'm going to worry about that center point because this is important. Okay, and now I'm going to hit this point again just to the right of that stitching line. There we go. And all the way through. Do the same thing here. Align the first one and sew till that one's locked in. Notice I'm not even worrying about this right now. I'm only worrying about from here to here. Because this is a small block, I don't pin because I can adjust it as I go. Okay, that one is nested nicely, meeting up nicely here at the corner. Get that lined up, and I'm going to hit just to the right of that point. In a perfect world. Did I do it? I think I did. And there we go. Bring that first one back down. And do it again. Let's see how'd I do. Well, I got a little bit off of that point. These points are pretty good, but it's good. It's acceptable. If somebody looks at that and goes, "Ooh, I'm not going to use that pot holder because that point is not quite right," well, they don't deserve my pot holder anyway, do they? Okay, there we go. And off we go. Got that one. Ooh, I got that point just right, I can tell. There's that one. And last seam right here. No, in reality, nobody is going to notice those points except for you. And I feel like done is better than perfect. Do I want it really wonky? Well, no, of course not. But 1 point off is not going to make me stop finding my joy when I'm sewing. All right, we have 2 star blocks done. And let's press them out. Now, remember how we discussed this point wants to go that way? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to press the whole side towards the center. Because it's just easier to fight these 2 small points than this one that has so much more fabric. Okay. We got that one. And let's get this one. Aren't those just cheery little stars? Oh, that was a Bob Ross moment, wasn't it? Or happy little clouds. No. I just think that this bright yellow and blue together is just such a nice combination for stars. It just makes me joyful. Okay, so we have 2 of those. Now, let's take our strip here. This was our strip that we made. And look, they are not even close to the right side, but we knew that going in. We knew that we made these smaller than this. So we just need to make it the right size now. So this is an 8-inch strip. This is a 6.5-inch strip. Where's my mark? A little bit shyer than 6.5. So we could do the math and get it figured out exactly, but I'm not about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some strips, and I know how wide it is, so I'm going to cut it the right width, which is 6 3/8. So I'm going to take and cut 4 of these little strips that I have here that are 1.5 inches. I'm going to cut 4 of them into 6 3/8. And that's going to make my block oversized because I want to be able to trim it down to get it just right. Okay, so here's another one. I suppose I should put my cutting mat under me, right? Because that would be the best idea when I'm trimming. Okay, set this aside. And here's my cutting mat. So 6 3/4. So I'm going to have it hang off this edge a little bit. I'm going to trim both ends just to make sure I'm nice and accurate. Excuse me. Okay. Where's my cutter? There's my cutter. Okay. So I started on this side. This is why I love my little mat. You can get the ones that rotate too, but I just love this one. And trim that off. Go back around here. And here's my 6 line right there. So I just need 3/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch more, which is right there. Nice and straight. And that's my scrap. Okay, so now I have 4 of those at 6 3/8. Oh. Okay, and I'm going to just simply put those along 2 sides, opposite sides of this block. And if they aren't exact, that's okay, because we're going to trim everything up in just a few minutes. And there we go for one. And we'll get this one too at the same time. We'll just do our chain piecing little thing. Okay, so now the reason I'm doing this way, remember I told you I'd share why I'm doing this, putting the border on it. Let me show you my original here. This is my original. And you see, these points came out okay, but these kind of got cut off and into the binding. And I just thought it would look cooler if that star kind of floated in here. So that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to float our star a little bit. Okay. Cut that one off and do the other side. And now this is going to be bigger than our 8.5 that we need. So we'll be able to trim it down to 8.5 once we get all 4 pieces on. Now I could sew with the star up so that I'm watching my points. That probably would be a good idea. But we're just going to go for it. Okay. See that? Isn't that nice? Okay. And then we're going to press out towards this area here, away from your star points, so it'll lay nice and flat. And put your other 2. I cut these at 8.5, I believe. Let's see. I love my little measure here on. No, I cut them at 8 because this is going to be an 8-inch square. So whether or not this whole thing is 8, it's not quite. It's a little bit bigger than 8, but we are going to just put this on here because we know we're going to trim. And so we're going to just center it and sew her down. Like that. Because remember, we knew that other one was a little bit big. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to sew it from the top this time so you can see. Get it on there. Center that strip that's just a little bit less than the other. Okay. And now we can just go through and watch our points. It's hard to see your point because it's pressed towards it, but there it is right there. So you can eyeball right here. Again, here's your point. So we're eyeballing right there where my finger's at. And stop and get that pressed under. Okay. And the last 2. Okay, getting close, getting close. Now, this time we have to be aware of which way our seams are pressing. This one is going up, so we need to make sure we keep it up. This one's down. Now, remember what I said. If you need to pause this and finish your spot, do that and then come back. I'll wait for you. And we'll get it all done. If I didn't get that layered right, I think it's going to be fine. Okay. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both my stars and my stripes, and I'm going to go over to my big iron, and I'm going to give everything a really, really good press just to make sure that it's exactly accurate, and then I can trim so that these match this. Okay? So go press and come back. Okay, now it's time to match them up. So this one match is 7 and 7/8. That also you can say 7 and 7/8. Okay, doesn't really matter if it's exactly the 8 inches because you're going to trim everything to match. And this side is also 7 and 7/8. Okay, so apparently my seam allowance was a little tight. I took off just a smidge more than the 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't matter. It's going to work. I don't mean to say that flippantly, that doesn't matter, it's going to work. But with this project, as long as everything lines up, the exact size is not an issue. So I'm going to cut this one down to 8 inches. So this is just a little bit shy of 8 inches, and we can trim this off when we're done. So for 8 inches, I need my center to be at 4 inches. So let me find my 4-inch mark. Okay, here's my 4-inch mark. See the white line? Nope, the black line here. That's 4 inches. So I'm going to line that up through my points like that. Get it pulled down here onto my little mat. My mat's just barely big enough for this. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it this way so that I can cut the long sides first. And that'll help. Okay, so 4 inches is right here. Line that up now and trim off this side. There really isn't very much to trim off, just a little scant skosh of a thing there. Flip it around, and now I can line it up on the 8-inch mark. Right here's my 8, and this is an 8.5 ruler. Oh, I'm sticking off the side of the board. This is an 8.5-inch ruler, so I know that I'm just going to need to cut off right to there. 8.5, right there, 8. And I'm pull it down so I'm not hitting my machine. There we go. Okay, and then we'll turn it and do the same thing here, and we'll get them both trimmed down using this center, the center line. Okay, wait a minute. Nope, that's 4.5 line. I gotta find the right one. Turn it around here. Takes me a minute sometimes to have to think my ruler through, which is okay. Okay, so the start line is my 4. And we trim off that side, flip it around, scooch over 1/2 inch until I'm lined up again. I'm checking over here on this side here to make it at the 8. There we go. But like I say, this is, we have a little wiggle room still, but okay. I'll get the other one in a minute. So what we're going to do is we are going to just take this one, and I'm going to do it this way, And we are going to just sew these. Oh, no, we're not going to do that quite yet. I am so sorry. We are going to hold off on that. First, we need to make our pockets. Okay? So we are going to make our pockets out of an 8-inch square like that. Okay? Because we want our hand to be able to go in. So we don't want any raw edges showing, right? Now, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it with just 2 pieces of cotton, like this. However, if you do that, you have um, the option, I guess is the word I want. You may touch the top of your oven and burn the back of your hand. So instead of just doing it with the 2 cottons, let's put a piece of batting in between. Okay, so here's our batting. Because this is the upside of the pot holder, it's not the part that your hand is going to be holding the pot with, I'm not going to put a heat resistant fabric in there. I'm just going to put 1 layer of batting. For the rest of it, we will be using a heat resistant fabric also. Okay, so we're going to put this on here, right sides together. And we are going to sew across one side here. 1/4 of an inch. I'm using this, well, let's use this side. I'm going to use the side where the batting is even. Doesn't matter which side because your star is the same all the way around. And you're just going to sew it all the way like that. Okay. All right. Now you can come back through and trim this batting close to the seam so that you don't have bulk there. Or you can leave it. It's just a matter of how you like yours to feel. I'm going to cut mine down a little bit. See how I'm holding the scissors on the side? And I'm able to get right up close to that stitching. They make special scissors for that, but I find I can do it pretty well if I just hold my scissors on the side. Okay. Now you're going to take it and you're going to flip it over like this. See that? So you have fabric on both sides with the batting in between, just like that. Okay? And you're going to do that to both of them. Here's my other one. We're going to do batting. We're going to do backing right side up and star right side down, like that. And so right along the edge. Now I have not trimmed this star up, but it's going to be okay. I can trim it up after this step. Oh, got an extra piece of fabric there. Okay, there's one other thing I like to do when I am doing a pocket like this. Let's trim this off. I'm going to show you. I worry sometimes, and even with top stitching, I want to secure this down to where it doesn't roll to the front. So I'm going to sew another little, well, let's leave this one so you can see it both ways here. So I am going to sew this, I'm going to press it towards the back. Okay, this is the back. And I'm going to just, this, it's not even going to show on the front. And yes, I probably should change to blue thread on the back, but it's going to be inside. You're not going to see it. When I do the quilting, I might do that. I can't remember. I'll have to look at my other one to see if I did. Okay, so by doing that, when this gets flipped over like this, see how it stays down? You don't see that fold. On this one, you see the top line. On this one, you don't. It's tucked to the back. So I'm going to do that to this one too. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to sew this towards the back. It just makes it a little bit cleaner finish. Is this a necessary part? No. I just like the feel of it this way. Okay, so now when you fold it back down, there you go. You cannot see that seam right at the top because it is aimed towards the back. And I just think that is a nicer seam. It also gives one more row of stitching there, which gives some stability to this edge. So when you put your hand in, it's just thicker and a little more stable. Okay, so we have these two done. And before we can really go on, we need to do a little bit of quilting on it. Okay, so let's see right here. I quilted in my star a little bit. This is a smaller star. It probably won't take near as much quilting as this one did. I wanted to make sure it was nice and secure in the middle. However, on this one, I now have this seam here, and when I quilted this one, I was able to quilt all the way up to the edge, getting that point. So that solidified that edge. On this one, I'm going to top stitch across it so that that is nice and secure there. So I'm going to change my thread. I'm going to put on yellow thread and I'm going to quilt my star however you want to quilt it. On this bigger one, I quilted 1/4 of an inch in on all of my star points. And then I quilted 1/4 of an inch in here and then another little one in the middle. Or I did actually 2 in the middle. Since this is so much smaller, I will probably stitch in the ditch here and just do 1 square in the middle. And I will just stitch in the ditch around my stars. Okay, so how am I going to get that square in the middle centered? Well, I am going to use my ruler. Okay, so I have, from the center out, I have 1 3/8 inches. Okay, so let's say I want to square. I'm gonna come to about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm gonna use my marker. I'm just gonna draw a line. 3/4 of an inch. Well, draw the line, not pretend to draw the line. 3/4 of an inch in, all the way around. I'm just lining up with the edge of the star. And this is a heat erase pen. Typically, I don't use it on the top, but because this is a pot holder and it's always going to get in the heat, even if it does show a little bit, it'll go away every time it's used. And once it's washed, typically the residue from these heat erase pens go away. So see how that is? Now I can just do that and I'll hit it with the iron when I'm done. Oh, got to do this one too. 3/4 of an inch in. You can choose how big of a square you want or no square at all. You could just do diagonal across on both sides. Find it's your quilt. You find what you like. I just thought this was a cool way to do it. So that's what I did. I'm not going to do the double stitching like I did on the first one because it's not as big of a star. It won't need as much. Okay. So let me, first I'm going to change to yellow thread and I'm going to do this stitching. And then I'll change to blue thread and I'll do all that stitching. Okay. So here we go. Now I have my yellow thread here. I picked this one because it just disappears in that. So when you change the thread on your machines, I don't know if you can, no, you can't see it. Cut your thread up here at the top and pull it through your needle every time you change your thread. I know that we watched our grandmother all our life grab the thread and just pull it out. That's really hard on your machine because what that does is it takes any lint that's right down in here in your needle area and it pulls it up into your tension discs. Now on old machines, we could get in that tension disc and clean it. On these newer ones, we don't have access to our tensioner. It's back in here. No access at all to that. So if you get dirt crammed into the bottom of that, then you actually have to take it to a service department and have them clean it and service your machine, which, you know, depending on your area, could be quite a significant investment, but you won't be able to get good tension if you do that. So don't pull your thread back through your machine, snip it, and pull it through the same way it goes when it's sewing. There's my little public service announcement for today. I worked a number of years in the sewing machine industry and selling sewing machines, and the tech that I worked with said that is his biggest advice to prevent having to come in for servicing is to never pull your thread backwards through the machine. Okay, so now I'm going to take off this foot because I want to put on a foot that I can see really clearly with. I'm going to just put on an open toe foot here. And I'm going to stitch in the ditch right along the edge of the blue. Because I have yellow thread on, I want to stay in the yellow, not up in the blue. Stop needle down and pivot. Make sure I'm pulled nice and straight. I am. And keep going right along that yellow. You notice I slow way down when I'm doing this, because you get, look, you can hardly see it down in there. So if you're nice and slow, you can get a good, accurate seam that you can barely see. Now this one, that point I didn't quite meet, so I'm going to take one stitch across it so that I can get right into that next yellow spot without having it touch the blue. There we go. This is when the needle down function on your machine is really handy. If you don't have one, you need to make sure you drop your needle at every intersection, raise your presser foot, and turn it. Drop your needle, raise your presser foot, and turn. Otherwise, you're going to get all kinds of little jiggity jaggedy turns, and that's not going to look really nice. Okay, here we go. We're almost all the way around. Okay, so I'm a little bit on the blue that time, and I'm going to show you the difference. You can see it a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to look at that more carefully. Is that going to bother me? You know what? It's not, because it sits in the ditch far enough that it's not going to bother me. If it would, at this point, I would take it out and redo, but it's not going to bother me. And now we're going to go here. Sometimes it gets hidden in the shadow of the fold of the block, so you don't have to take it out. Sometimes it's going to sit right on top of the blue and scream at you like, oh no, and those are the times you take it out. Okay, where did oh, I'm not even close. I'm only halfway. I thought I was closer. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to finish this one, and then I will do the other one off camera, because you don't need to watch me do both of them. And then when you are ready to go on, you can turn it back on and we'll do the next step. Okay. There we go. This is one I'm going to take one little stitch over, because I missed that point just a smidge. Okay, now I'm back where I started. I'm going to still drop my needle right there, and I'm going to turn, and I'm going to top stitch back over the first 3 or 4 stitches of that first one to lock it in. Okay, so see that? I've got that all the way around. Cut off my threads that are showing here. Now I'm going to do this center. I'm going to start right in a corner. You can start anywhere. I'm going to just start in a corner. And I'm going to just sew right on that line. Pivot when your needle hits the point. Just like that. Okay, when I'm back at the beginning, remember I'm going to just turn and do another 3 or 4 stitches and cut. That anchors that beginning point and hides the ending point. Okay, now look at the back. Okay, so I did not change to blue thread. And the reason I didn't is on my machine, it is time for service. I need to get it taken into my service department because my tension is just a little bit off. So had I used a blue thread here, I would have run the risk of it popping through to the front, and I don't want that. So because you will never see the inside of that, unless you do this, you're not going to see the inside of that. It's hidden away. I just left it with white thread and I didn't worry about it. I could have changed it to yellow, but the white is a close enough match that it wouldn't show. And then I'm going to just take that line away, and there we go. Okay, so quilt both of your stars however you want, and then come back and we're going to move on to figuring out our stripes. Okay, so I have done the stitching around the stars, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know what? It is very secure. Because we did this little row of stitching, it really doesn't even need any blue top stitching. It's not going to need something around here. It's going to be just fine without. Now, I also wanted to address why I chose to stitch with the yellow thread versus the blue, because they come together. So I could have done either one. The reason I went with the yellow is because you see sometimes when I got off just a little bit and the yellow's on the blue, you are going to notice a dark thread on a light fabric much more than you notice a light thread on a dark fabric. So when it comes between a choice between the two, I always go for the lighter one. That is something I learned when I was long arming, is that when you have a variety of colors, the lighter choice is going to blend in on the dark better than the dark is going to blend in on the light. So that is why I chose to do it that way. And I'm just choosing not to do any more with the blue thread. I think it is very secure. If you want to add blue just for decorative purposes, go for it. Okay, so now we need to address this section. Okay, so when I originally designed this project, I was thinking about doing a pillowcase binding and not having to bind it with the binding. And I was going to layer it and put the backing on top and then turn it right side out. And then I remembered, or I realized, that if I do that, I cannot quilt all the way to the edge on this backing because the pockets will be in my way. So I went back to the original plan. I used this striped fabric just because that's what I had and I loved it. And I quilted this section separately and then put these on. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to start with our backing fabric face down. We are going to take a layer of Insulbright or whatever heat fabric you have. One side is a little shiny, one side is less shiny. Really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but I do tend to put the shiniest side down and just line it up. My backing is cut just a little bit wider. I think I cut it at 8.5 by 27.5 instead of 8 by 27. And I'm lining it up nice and straight so that the straight on my stripe is even. And then I'm going to top it with a plain cotton batting. Okay, so that's really kind of thick. Oh, look, I got off over here. I need to move it down some. But I like a thick pot holder. I like to be able to hold my hand to the pot for a long time without it burning me. This combination, I have done this combination before, and I have taken my hottest iron and I have put my hand under it, and this is not my hottest, but I can put my hottest iron on my hand and I can hold it for a very long time. I'm starting to feel warmth right now, but I'm not feeling any heat. It's just warmth. So you can hold it for a very long time. I think with my hottest iron, before it got really warm, not uncomfortable, but I knew it was getting there, it was 20 seconds. And, you know, you never holding a pot that long. So this is just what I find a really good combination to use is one cotton and one heat resistant. Okay, so we're going to just get it smoothed out, make sure it's all aligned properly. There we go. Okay, and then I am, because I don't, it's small enough, I don't feel the need to use basting spray or anything on it. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a pin here in the very center, just so that it stays where I want it. I'm going to check the back. Oops, see, I missed it here, so let's do that one again. And now these pins are right down my center, so I can kind of tell if my stripes are fairly even, and they are. So it's not going to be a perfect even stripe, but it is going to be an evener stripe. Okay, now when I'm quilting that much, that thick of a project, I really want a walking foot on. So this is my I have two walking feet on my machine. One is your standard walking foot that is wide. This one is very acceptable, but I'm going to use this narrow one because it has a 1/4 inch foot on it. So, and I want to use that. And with that, you can use this plate, but my machine comes with a specialty plate that goes with it. So I'm going to swap over to those. If you don't have these things, it still is just fine. So let me get my machine set up. Okay, we're all set up with the walking foot engaged. I have on my specialty plate. Now, I changed my thread back to white because we're going to address these two white strips first. Remember how we had pressed towards the red? That means that this is the downhill side. So I'm going to quilt through the downhill side first on the whites. Okay, so I am going to line it up with the center stripe, and I'm just going to go along. Now, the reason I'm using a walking foot on this, even though it's not a big project, is because there are so many layers involved. And if we don't have a walking foot, things are going to shift. So with this walking foot, right back in here in the walking foot are some little teeth that are grabbing and pulling the fabric towards the back, just the same way as the bottom feet are pulling it towards the back. So it keeps everything from shifting. Otherwise, you may end up with your top misaligned, and you don't want that. Okay, and we're just going right down that stitch, and you can see I'm lining it up right here in the center of my foot. I'm trying to get my stiletto here. See how I'm lining it up right here in the center. I can see my needle. We're going to use this side later, but right now we're just following that needle right down the center of that ditch, keeping in the white, not letting it jump up onto the red, so that it'll look nice and accurate. So far, so good. So this just takes a little bit of time and patience. I would like to be able to just buzz right along with this, but on this line, I need it to be really, really accurate. Now when I get to the second row of stitching, after I've got it all basted down here, I won't have to be quite as careful. And I'll show you why. Okay, so that is our first line. I am going to do that on all four sides of the white strips before I go on. Now, remember how we sewed top to bottom on the when we sewed the strips together? If you are not using a walking foot, you want to turn around and sew from the bottom up. If you're using a walking foot, you can get away without it, but I'm going to go ahead and just turn it and go bottom up. I'm still keeping really close in there, and I'm keeping my hands close because I'm using them to pull out on that fabric to open up that seam a little bit so that it will hide my row of stitching right in the seam. You won't even notice that I've done this stitching if I've done it accurately. And that's what Stitch in the Ditch is all about, is to hide your seam but anchor it. You really don't want it to show. Sometimes it does, but you really don't want it to. And there we go. See how you just don't even see the stitch here? But you can see the dimension of it pulling the fabric down. That's what you're looking for with a Stitch in the Ditch. Now there are specialty feet that have a guide that you can ride right down that line and it'll help you stay right in that ditch. I don't particularly have one. I have a foot that I could make work for that. It's my blind hem foot, but it doesn't work with my walking foot. And so I may at some point buy the walking foot attachment that has that Stitch in the Ditch foot on it. But in reality, I don't do a whole lot of quilting on my domestic machine because I do own a long arm, and so most of it's done on the long arm. Okay, turn it and go the other way again. But it is important that you know how to do this, even if you have a long arm. And I know that not that many people have long arms. I'm just one of the blessed ones. So it is important to be able to do this by hand if you need to. Later on in the year, we're going to do a little bit of machine quilting, free motion quilting on your machine, which is really fun. And I'm going to show you a couple of techniques for that. So stay tuned for that. Probably this fall, we'll get ready for some Christmas things by doing some Stitch in the Ditch, or not stitch, some free motion, I'm sorry, some free motion stitching on your domestic machine. There we go. So for the first number of years that I quilted, I did not have a long arm, and so I did everything by my domestic machine. Okay, at this point, on my sample, I was not careful, and I had that folded over, and so I had to take it out from there to there and get this flipped over. So just be aware to make sure the back is where you want it to be. Let me make the mistake so you don't have to. There we go. The walking foot does look like it's still pushing it a little bit, but it really isn't. It's keeping it pretty smooth. But this is a really thick piece right here, so there is going to be some movement, and that's why we turned it. Even with the walking foot, you don't have to, but I find that I do, just because it's good best practices is to go every other row the opposite direction. That way, if there is any pull, it's evened out. Okay, we are almost done. Right there. Okay, now remember how I said that I was going to show you the easy way to go zippity zoo. Okay, I'm going to take out these pins because I keep poking myself and everything's stable now. So I don't need them anymore. But I've been checking to make sure I didn't bleed. But okay. So this foot right here, this edge, is 1/4 of an inch from there. So now I'm just going to run that right in my ditch and do a second stitching. And now I can go a lot faster because it's real easy to keep it right in that. It just rides along there perfectly like it was meant to do it. And I can just go right up that side and get a double seam in my whites. Okay, so that's one. Now, before I spin it, I'm going to actually just come over and do this one. Oh, look at what happened. I just did that whole thing. Oh my goodness, I did a lot of stuff here. I ran out of bobbin thread right here on the stitch in the ditch. Oh, wouldn't you just know it? Don't you know that that's always going to happen, is you're going to go about 3 yards worth of stitching without bobbin thread at some point in a project? So I pre-wind my bobbins, and then these are the little hair ties that you get in the baby department at like Walmart and whatnot. So I can pre-wind them and put them in a jar next to my machine. So they're ready, and I don't have, when that happens, I don't have to stop and start over. Okay, let's go back and we'll get this again. See how quick when you have that pre-wound bobbin, you don't have to unthread your machine. You can just get it in there. So when I'm on the phone talking to my mother-in-law or my sister or somebody, I will just sit here and wind bobbins ahead of time so that I always have a stash of bobbins. I think I have, I probably have 40 or 50 bobbins for this machine. And so I will wind 35 or 40 at a time and keep my jar nice and full. I use the so fine thread that's in a spool like this, and I typically use an off-white. So I'm actually experimenting right now. I've kept track of how many bobbins I've wound off of that spool, just because I want to know how many I can get out of each spool. Okay, here we go. Now we can zip zoom right down this side again. And I do have bobbin thread. Yay! And it's just riding right along that edge. There we go. And look how cool that looks. Okay, so we're going to come over and jump over and do this one real quick. Okay, so I'm going to do these other two sides of the white. I'm going to change to red thread, and I'm going to do this one, this one, and this one, and this one. And then when we're there, I'll come back on and show you how to do these outside too. Okay? So go sew some stripes, quilt some stripes up, and then come back and we'll move on to the next. Okay, so I have gotten all the inner stripes done. I have also gone right close to the edge out here and anchored this outside stripe down. So that's going to do two things. It's going to make putting in this next strip easier, or stripe right there. It's going to make it easier, but it also is going to make it easier when we bind it. So now we have to put in this outside strip. Now, if we were to just run along the 1/4 of an inch like we did here, it would get lost in our binding. So we need to move it in a little ways. So how are we going to do that and be accurate? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I am going to measure how big these stripes are. So that is 7/8 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch. Okay, so basically we have a 7/8 of an inch opening right here in the center. Okay, so we want this one to also be 7/8 of an inch, right? Okay, how are we going to do that? We can't put tape on the machine because it's not going to be accurate. It's going to be underneath. So with each machine typically comes, now this is my standard foot, but you will often get one of these little gadgets. And you think, what the heck is that for? Well, this is that seam guide. So in the side of your foot, sometimes it's going to be a snap-on. You're going to put it on top and snap it down. Sometimes it's a hole like this. You kind of have to force it through that little hole, right? Okay. And then we will line up our needle with the needles right here. We will put that on the 7/8 of an inch and then pull this over to where when we sew, that can ride right on this seam that we know. Does that make sense? So with my walking foot, I also have that same little hole in there. I just have to get over here and get into it. It's harder to find from this angle because I have a camera in my way. Oh, there it is right there. Right there. Okay. So now bring my ruler out and I'm going to put my needle at the 7/8 of an inch. That's right there. Okay. And then line that up and push this over. So this is on the edge of my seam that I've already done. And I'm putting my needle at the 7/8 of an inch right there. And then I'm going to just push this over till it hits that. Now I know that when I'm running through this, there's going to be a 7/8 inch right in there. And I can just come back up at the top. And now I'm not going to watch my needle near as much as I'm going to watch this. And now, even though I just did that, it looks a little bit, nope, it's just right. Okay, so this is going to be bigger than that 1/4 of an inch. It's going to be closer to 1/2 an inch now. Okay, ready? And we're just going to, I'm looking at this, not at this, because that's what I want to guide along. See how cool that is? So that is going to give me enough extra over here on this side to put a binding without running into my quilting stitch. Oh, I got off there. I got off. Let's see what happened. See how I let it wander just a little bit? But when you think about it, this is going to go right on top. So I'm not going to worry about taking it out. Okay, that's one side. Turn it over and get the other side. Same thing. We're still at 3/8 of an inch, or at 7/8 of an inch. So let's drop it right there and go. Pay better attention this time that I don't let it wander towards the end, because that's what I did. I got a little lackadaisical and I let it wander a little. So just keep it right on that. Even if this line isn't quite straight, it's going to give you the illusion of straight because it's going to be the same on this side. And there we go. We have them, all of our parts done and ready to put together. So what we have to do at this point is we need to trim everything down. So let's bring up our mat here. And we are going to trim right at the edge of our red strip. Okay, and if you notice, look at where this seam hits, right at the 1/2 inch mark. So that means I'm going to have a 1/2 inch for binding and still have a 1/2 inch showing my quilting stitch. Okay, so right here, we're just going to go right up. Now, typically I would take this to my big cutting table, but we're going to just do it right here and cut right up that edge. Oops, I've pulled off of my sewing table. Okay. And these titanium blades, do you see how well they're just cutting through all of this excess and that Insul Bright and everything? It just goes right through it, just like that. Oh, fabulous. Okay, so there's one. Now we'll go up this side. Do the same thing. Just line up with that outside edge and go. This is the part that is so satisfying to me. It's like, ooh, look at it. It looks so much better now. When you have all this other stuff, it gives you the illusion of being crooked. But now that we have it trimmed off, it looks perfectly straight. Now, on this one, I'm going to turn my mat because I want to make sure, see how I have a little bit of warp that way? I want to make sure that that end is even. Even if it cuts down just a little bit from my 27 inches, it's more important to me that it's square than that it is exactly 27 inches. So look at there. I'm cutting off just a smidge. I need to move over so I'm not going to hit my machine. Oh, I slid my board. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Look how cool that looks. Okay, I'm getting proud of myself now. All right. And again, same thing here. A little bit of wiggle. Put it on the mat. Get it nice and straight. There we go. Because fabric does wander when you're doing long, skinny strips, even going back and forth. Okay, there we go. We have our center strip all done. It looks great. Now, I chose to just use white thread because I have a red and white backing, so that still worked just fine. Now, we need to measure this and see exactly how big it is. It is 7 1/4 inch because it shrinks up a little bit, right? When you quilt, 7 1/4. So what does that mean for this? We need these to be 7 1/4 inch. So get out your big square ruler. And 7 1/4, what is half of 7 1/4? It's going to be 3 5/8. So we're going to find the 3 5/8 is right there. We're going to put that 3 5/8 on our point and trim off this side of it. Okay, turn it around. Now we know that this is 7 1/4, so we can come over and put it at 7 1/4. Right there, 7 1/4, and trim off this edge. Now I can't get that because it was off my machine. Okay, and then we're just going to square up the bottom of it. It doesn't really matter how long it is. Right there, just going to square it up. Right there, I have it at 7 1/2 inches. Okay, so there we go with that one. We'll do the same thing. 3 5/8. Get my ruler turned the right way here. 3 and 3 1/2, 3 5/8. Right there. There's my 3. Oh, wait a minute. I have the 1/2 inch mark over here, so that would have not been right. Let's turn it to where I have the 1 inch there. Okay, now I'll get it right. 3, and here's 3 1/2, so there's 3 5/8 right there. Pull it down on my mat so I can get the whole thing. and trim that off. And now we're going to go for this one at 7.5, or yeah, 7.5. Oh, we got to turn it, don't we? 7.5. Actually, it was 7.25, wasn't it? Let's make sure. Yep, 7.25. You see that? It was a little bit too big. Scooch it over to 7.25. I know I had the center right. I just didn't have this cut right. There we go. Okay. And clean off that bottom edge. And I did that one at 7.5, so I'll do this one at 7.5. There we go. We are ready to assemble. When I don't have it all the way on my cutting mat, I can't get that last final little bit. There we go. Okay. Set all this aside. And this is what we're going to do. I'm going to leave my walking foot on for this part. So I am going to put this right on top in my corner, and I am going to sew it down on 3 sides, just so that it makes it really easy to bind it later. I'm going to sew it right close to the edge so it holds that binding nice and snug. I don't care that it's really, my stitching is super straight. I don't care that I still have on red thread because it's going to be hidden in the binding. I do care that it is lined up straight. Okay. There. Now, I'm going to show you one more trick way of binding using a little bit of a trick product. Have you ever used paperback fusible web for applique and whatnot? Well, there's one that you can use for binding too. So let me show you that. I got that one on nice and square. Look at that. Look at that. And my hand just fits right in there. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to do this one, and then we will prep our binding and get going. This is my favorite binding method when I am doing something that I need to get done in a hurry, or something that is going to be used a lot, and I'm afraid that hand binding might not hold up. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with my normal binding. This is a 2.25 inch. 2.5 works well also. I just prefer 2.25 because I want this to be a nice small binding. So I have a 2.25 inch binding. I did do my angled join, and I've pressed it in half. Now I'm going to do one more thing to this before I attach it to my project. And this is just this little magic touch here. I'm going to use a double stick fusible web 1/4 inch tape. Now I have Steam a Seam too. There's a bunch of different ones out there, but I'm going to adhere this to the folded edge of my binding. I'm going to start here, and this goes really quickly, and I'm just going to add it close to that edge on the folded edge of the binding. Just like this all the way down. Now, we'll see if I have enough on here for this. Otherwise, I'll open another packet. On this today, we are playing a little bit of chicken. I'm playing chicken whether or not I have enough tape on this roll. And I'm playing bobbin chicken. I have I hope, just enough blue bobbin in there. If not, we will have to stop midway and wind a new bobbin. But I'm going to be brave this morning and see if I have enough there to not have to wind another bobbin. We will see. Got to add some sort of mystery to your life, and if bobbin chicken is all you got, then you're living a pretty blessed life, aren't you? I know I am. A very blessed life. Okay, so I'm about halfway through here, and I'm just going to, oh, look at there. Okay, I lost chicken once. I guess I'll probably lose it the second time too. You're going to want to go all the way down on the folded edge. There we go. Let me open up my other box. There are 40 yards on this, so it's not a huge expense. Okay, there we go. Look at that. It comes with two. Well, this brand comes with two of these in each box. So I think there's 40 yards of it. So that's a whole lot of binding. Now, do I do this on every quilt? No, I do not. Sometimes I will do it if it is going to be a quilt that I want to hand bind. And I'm going to take it places with me to work on. Like if you have to go to a lot of baseball games or something and you want something to do while you're sitting there, I will do this because then I don't have to take clips. But for the most part, I only do this for small projects or quick projects. Okay, all the way down. Now I'm going to add this to my project as if I were going to hand stitch it. Add it to the front and then hand stitch it to the back. Okay, now if I were in fact going to do a hand stitching, I would make sure that I left a good 1/8 of an inch there so that I wouldn't have to stitch through this tape, because that would just be a little bit much. Okay, so I've got it on there. I'm going to start here in the middle. I'm going to leave my tails so that I can do my piece there in the center. And I am going to sew this with the tape up. I do like to take the tape off at this point. It comes off the paper side comes off real easy at this point. The only reason I do is because when you get to the corner piece, sometimes it's harder to get the paper out later on because of the fold. Okay, here we go. Well, it's going to be a little bit stinky this morning. That's okay. There we go. I do have my trash can right there. I'm not throwing it on my floor, although I have been known to do that. I have hardwood floors in my sewing room, so it's nice to just be able to come in with a broom later and clean up my mess. Okay, come on. That one's a little sticky. There we go. Now, got a little bit of a flaw there. It doesn't matter. I just want to hold most of it down. This is not like it's going to be the only security it's going to have. It is not. I'm going to also sew this. So this is just going to hold it in place for me when I come back. Have you ever applied the binding to the front, flipped it to the back, and then tried to machine sew it down? And you get a funny crooked line. It doesn't sew smoothly where you want it, and so sometimes it's on the binding, sometimes it's off, sometimes it's on a whole bunch, sometimes it's just barely catching it, and it just doesn't look smooth on the back. Well, that's what we're going to prevent with this technique. We are going to make it to where it's going to be nice and smooth all the way around on the back and on the front. Okay, I'm almost done peeling this all off. Well, I thought the reason I'm struggling is because I have not let it cool sufficiently. When you do this, the paper comes off a little bit better when you let it cool sufficiently. I'm in a hurry today, and I just didn't do that. Okay, so I still have the tape. See, you can barely see the tape, but here it is, tape side up. And I'm just going to bind it as I normally would, taking a real shallow 1/4 inch seam all the way around it. I'm using my 1/4 inch foot with the guide, so I'm sure that I'm staying nice and even. You could use your walking foot. Because I had sewed this seam around and made sure it was nice and stable, I'm not going to have any movement, so I can use this foot. Okay, to within a quarter. I'm going to stop. I could have sewn at an angle. I didn't this time. Foot up to where it's even here. Flip it over. And continue on all the way around your project. Just like we've been doing in all of our binding videos. Come on. There we go. It was being a little stubborn. If you remember, we have 2 layers of fabric, a batting, all this fabric, a batting, an insole bright, and a back, plus these 2 layers. So this machine is having to work right now to go through all these layers. And I'm having to give it just a little bit of help because it is struggling just a little. But it's going to do it. It's going to make it for me. I do have a different machine I could be using that's a little bit stronger. But this is a small project and it's going to do it. And we're just going to see if we are going to make it around with that blue bobbin chicken. I don't think I'm going to. But you know, it's always fun to try. Okay. And here we go up this side. Okay, so what is happening here is my foot is getting stuck on this sticky part of the tape there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and you can come up with any sort of way to do this, but I'm going to just take a piece of paper and put it right under that presser foot on that side so that the foot can't adhere to that gum, and it'll just go smoothly right through. Put that down. And look how much smoother that's going through because I have covered up that stickiness. So between all the layers of fabric and that little bit of stickiness there, I could have left the tape on and I wouldn't have had that problem, but you know, I'm living on the wild side today. Okay. We're about halfway around. Notice the paper's not even getting close to the needle because I'm just putting it right under, just covering up this sticky, because the seam is sticky on both sides. So it can be placed a couple of different times and then ironed down. And that's what I want, is that little bit of sticky when I come around to my next thing. Notice I am applying it to the front of my project. I'm going to be applying it to the front and wrapping it to the back. Okay. Getting close to another corner. I can stop and go at an angle if you want to. If you can fold your corners at a nice bias without that, you don't have to, but that is an easier way to get your nice 90-degree corners. Okay, so this side, it looks like I have the tape up far enough it's not going to get caught in that foot. We'll see if we have that problem again. We know what to do about it. All the way to the corner and off. Okay, we are on our final, oh, look at there. I did lose my bobbin chicken. Okay, so I'm going to wind a new bobbin and be right back. Okay, crisis averted. We are rewound, ready to go. Back up to this corner. And our final side. Here we go. I always want to start quoting Peter Pan right now. Straight on till morning. And I don't know why that is, because that really has nothing to do with what I'm doing. But, you know. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to stop right there and do our little connect. Now, we're going to overlap it. I'm going to cut off just a smidge here so I know how far to overlap. There's my bottom. Here's my top. We are now overlapped the same length, and I'm going to cut this one right at the same length as that overlap. There we go. Okay, we're going to take the top one and simply open it out and lay it flat. We're going to take the bottom one. I'm going to flip this up so I have more room. I'm going to just lay it on top without twisting anything and open it up and sew my diagonal. If you need to, stop here, put a pin in it, double check that you've got everything right. Sew your diagonal like that. And then double check. Look at there. Okay, trim this baby off. Fold it back over so I have some room to work here. Now, at this point, I can't really bring my iron back in to press this seam open because I do have that tape on there, but I can finger press it. See, because here's the tape right here. We don't really want that on the faceplate of my iron. So we'll just give it a good finger press and open it out and finish it off. Okay, so now we will have had the entire binding attached to our project, in this case our pot holder. I have a little bit of fullness there, but that's okay. It's going to be hidden in the binding. Okay, we're going to come back and clip our corners as always, because that's a lot of fabric right there. We're just going to get it clipped off so that we have a nice smooth corner. Now these are the two that I sewed to the end, so it's a little bit trickier to clip the corners there, but we'll still get it done. Just take away some of that bulk. Okay, now at this point we need to bring our project back to the ironing and turn it over, and we are going to wrap this all the way around to the back, and we are going to press it down right there to the back. Now you can see here's my blue thread. I have white from my other sewing, but my blue thread is adhering the binding on. So I need to make sure that this is covering that blue thread. So right there, I'm going to just roll it over and give it a good press. And I'm just leaving the iron on, so while I'm adjusting, I'm not picking the iron up and moving it with me. I'm just leaving it down so it gets a little extra heat on that piece as I'm putting it over there. Okay, just like that. Now, if I were in a really, really big hurry and on my way to a 4th of July picnic at this point, this would be enough to get me through the day. It would be bound enough to get me through the day. However, it is not bound enough to finish this project in the long term. I know they say that Steam a Seam will finish it off for you And you don't have to sew it down. I just disagree. I like to make sure that I have it completely done. There's my little mitered corner. Okay, so I'm going to press all the way around this, get that adhered down. See, it's not moving anywhere, and that's where you end up with a problem when you're trying to sew from the front to the back, where you end up with a problem and have a wonky stitch on the back. Right there. You do need to make sure that your thread is matching your binding. That's why I went ahead and wrapped another spool of blue thread, because you do need your thread to match your binding really well. So hide it as much as you can. Get this on there. And I'm trying to keep it nice and straight, making sure that I'm covering that blue thread. But I want to keep it as straight as possible. See right here, it has a little bit of an indent. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to take that off and pull it in just a little bit more so it's nice and straight. There we go. And finish this around all the way. Now, as I'm coming to the edges, you see how it's not getting pulled quite as far over because there's just so much more thickness there. You just have to make sure you're covering that blue line of stitching or whatever color you've used there. This is not the type of binding that's going to win you any awards at a fair or a quilt show. This is a utilitarian binding that you're going to use for projects that you are making, that you love, and are going to use and use up and make again. This is not an heirloom quality binding in any way, but it certainly is a quick and easy one. Okay, and I need to smooth out that little area right there that has a pucker. Okay, and one last end, and we are done. Got to pull this out nice and snug. Okay. Now the trick to this is, you know how when you sew binding from the back, you can't see where it is on the front. And when you sew it from the front, you have to worry about whether you're catching the back, right? It is now hooked down to where you know you are going to catch the back as long as you stay in this seam right here, where this is what accounts for that blue thread here on the back. And as long as this is fairly straight, it is going to look nice and straight on the back. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to take off my 1/4 inch foot and put on an open toe foot so that I can have really good view of what I'm doing. And when I did that, I unthreaded my needle because that's just, the type of day I'm having. See if we can get it threaded in there again. I have the camera kind of in my way, so come on, baby. I can do this. I know I can. Sometimes when you put your finger behind it, you can see the hole a little bit better. Did I get it? I did not. So, know that everybody struggles threading their needle. Also, one of the things that sometimes helps is if you turn off your machine, that bright light shining off of the needle is not in your way. In this case, that didn't really help me. There are a number of needle threaders you can use. There we go. I have a little bird threader that I like to use too. Remember my little green bird threader? They are very helpful. Okay, here we go. Now I am going to stitch in the ditch right down that seam, and we will see what it looks like on the back. Here we go. It is going to be virtually invisible on the front because it is stitching in the ditch with blue on blue. Go to the center and pivot. So this is sewing on the front and machine sewing from the front to the back with the aid of some fusible tape. I won't go all the way around this. We will stop here at the end of the pocket and turn it over and look at the back. Okay, we're going to just stop right there so you can see what the back looks like. And look at that. It stays nice and even all the way around. You've caught everything. And it is absolutely acceptable for the type of project this is. So I hope that helps with one more way to bind. You have so many options now. If you have forgotten some of them, refer back to the binding series in the files. And happy quilting!